Tonight on NewsWatch, reconstructing the Republican Party. The new report outlining the GOP's need to change for the future.
Plus, America at work in the Middle East. Ahead of the president's visit to Israel, we'll look at a new poll evaluating U.S. involvement in the region.
And how Christians are working to make a difference in the lives of the most vulnerable in Ukraine. All this and more tonight on NewsWatch. Good evening, I'm Mark Martin.
And I'm Heather Sells. After losing the last two presidential elections, Republicans and conservatives are asking where they go from here.
That was the top issue at this weekend's Conservative Political Action Conference. As David Brody reports, the floor was open to a wide variety of ideas.
This conservative confab might as well have been called a conservative crossroads. The movement is grappling with finding the winning formula to win more voters in future elections. Losing presidential nominee Mitt Romney says lessons must be learned.
It's up to us to make sure that we learn from our mistakes and my mistakes, and that we take advantage of that learning to make sure that we take back the nation, take back the White House, get the Senate, and put in place conservative principles.
But nobody is quite sure of what those mistakes are exactly. Some, like Sarah Palin and Ted Cruz, came to the CPAC stage arguing not for a retooling of the conservative brand, but rather a more robust defense of constitutional conservatism. In our one-on-one interview with former presidential contender Rick Perry, he took a swipe at Romney and the more moderate crowd.
You need to nominate conservatives if you're going to win elections. You can't do it with moderates or even, moderate conservatives. Americans want the real thing.
Which leads us to the 2016 presidential election and why Kentucky Senator Rand Paul edged Marco Rubio in the CPAC presidential straw poll. One reason for that is that some conservatives are now starting to view Rubio as a bit more establishment class as compared to the libertarian-minded brand of conservatism that Paul is preaching.
The GOP of old has grown stale and moss-covered.
Paul is definitely a force to be reckoned with.
I think he's going to get the libertarians. I think he's going to get a lot of Tea Party people. I think he's going to get a lot of conservative people. And above all, I think he's going to get a lot of young people.
There's no doubt Paul is the hot commodity right now in conservative circles. Just ask Governors Chris Christie and Bob McDonnell, who weren't invited to speak because of what was considered a less than stellar conservative record in the last year. It's all part of a larger narrative about just how conservative the GOP needs to be to win elections. Evangelicals and Tea Partiers want the party to stay true to conservative principles. Other Republicans disagree. It's something we discussed with a guy who hardline conservatives seem to love.
How do you see this fight within the Republican Party right now?
Well, I largely agree with the Tea Party. I think that they have to stay true, and I think they got away with it last time, and it just didn't happen that way. And that's probably one of the reasons that the election results were so bad. You have to stay true to your principles. There's no question about it.
But even when you do that, you can still get beat. The Obama campaign's ground game was far superior to what Romney put out there, and that was part of the discussion here.
I think that targeting voters could be better done because we worked with the campaign and we actually did a lot of call nights and a lot of door knocking, and the lists that we got were not good, and I just feel like the Republican Party could target people better, target people who don't vote, and reach out to those people.
A lot to digest for a conservative movement trying to walk in lockstep together. David Brody, CBN News, in National Harbor, Maryland.
Well, the Republican Party today made public new plans to begin to court minority voters. The Republican National Committee formally endorsed immigration reform and a $10 million outreach effort to connect with minority groups, including gay voters. The RNC report says focus groups perceive the party as being, quote, narrow-minded, out of touch, and stuffy old men. The party plans to send hundreds of paid workers into Hispanic, Black, and Asian communities by the end of summer. The move is meant to rival the president's national political machine.
We're joined now by our chief political correspondent, David Brody. David, obviously there is some division as to where to take the Republican Party. We can see that in the report, but it could also be seen during CPAC. Talk a little bit about the difference between Marco Rubio and Rand Paul.
Well, sure, Mark. Look, I think the line of CPAC was when Rand Paul got up there and talked about how the GOP is old and moss-covered. You will never hear a line like that from Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio is more of that establishment class. Yes, he's Tea Party, but he's also part of that, more of that insider Washington crowd. Rand Paul doesn't want to be that guy. And so Rand Paul can get away with something like that. Marco Rubio cannot. That's the difference. And as we move forward to 2016, it's going to be interesting to watch Rand Paul versus Marco Rubio. Both Tea Party guys, but both approaching it in two very different ways.
Well, as we just reported, the RNC released the new report calling for reforms before the next election. It said the last election served as a wake-up call. How so?
Well, there are a lot of different reasons. First of all, obviously, they need to reach out to Hispanics in a much better way. But here's the problem with that, Mark, is that when you go through some of this report, they talk about throwing money here and reaching out there. But the truth is, if the only reason they're doing all of this is to, quote, win elections, and that's the #1 reason, then all of it's going to fail. It's not going to matter because ultimately this is a heart issue, as we like to say in the evangelical world. I mean, look, they've got to be serious about reaching out to Hispanics, to African Americans. I mean, to actually invest the time and go into those communities and explain why conservative/Republican positions work. That's going to be the key. If they don't believe it and they just want to win elections and hope people will come their way because they threw $10, $15, $20 million more at the problem, that's not going to fix anything, Mark.
Let's talk a little bit more about that. Outreach is a big theme of the new report. How can the GOP do a better job of reaching more people, and who should they be trying to reach? I know you mentioned going out in the neighborhoods. Yeah. What are some more specifics here, David?
Well, beyond Hispanics and African Americans we just talked about, I mean, young people here is going to be the key. Those 18 to 34-year-olds. Look, this is why we're seeing this problem within the Republican Party. A lot of folks are saying we need to be more inclusive, we need to be a little bit hipper, you know, we need to be able to understand their evolving issues on traditional marriage, now becoming more supportive of same-sex marriage. And I think this is part of the issue for the Republican Party right now. How inclusive are you going to be? How far away are you going to walk away from those bedrock Judeo-Christian principles? Some will say you need to go more towards the center and reach out to those young people, and that's the only way you're going to be able to do it. Other people say, hey, wait a minute here. You've got to do something totally different, and you've actually got to do what you've been doing from the beginning for a long time since Reagan was president, and really talking about social issues in ways that everybody can understand them.
All right, David Brody, once again, thanks for your time today. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark.
In other news, the Supreme Court is now set to decide whether states can force people to prove they're U.S. citizens before registering to vote. Paul Strand has more from Washington.
Opponents outside the Supreme Court said they're hopeful the justices will strike down Arizona's voting law because it requires more proof than would-be voters have to supply under the federal voter registration law.
This is about the basic right to vote. Arizona is trying to say no, they will not accept the federal mail voter registration form unless it is accompanied by additional documentation.
We joined the fight against Hitler and Nazism. And when we came back to the state of Arizona, we were not allowed to vote until 1948. And to this day, what goes on today to try to suppress voting, I mean, that really amazes me that this type of thing is still going on to this day.
But the man who defended Arizona's law Monday before the High Court and the man who wrote it say states must have a right to prove people really are eligible to vote.
It is the burden of the states to determine that all voters are eligible voters, and that means that they're citizens.
We know we have voting fraud. We've had many, many indictments in many states of irregularities and voter fraud. It's about time we step up to the plate and ensure that the right to vote is reserved for citizens of the United States.
If the court upholds Arizona's law, 12 other states are ready to pass similar tough voter laws. Paul Strand, CBN News, Washington.
President Obama's nominee for Secretary of Labor could face tough opposition from Senate Republicans in his confirmation hearing. Thomas Perez is the head of the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division. But Republicans have serious questions about his record on civil rights, immigration, and his challenges of voting rights laws. Some conservatives say Perez has been guided too much by his liberal political views And they say he didn't tell the whole story in his testimony in 2010 about an important case involving the new Black Panther Party. The party was charged with intimidating some voters.
Israel's new government was sworn in today, just 2 days before President Obama arrives on his first visit as president. Both Israel and the Palestinians have their own agendas for the visit, but a new poll shows most Americans don't want the U.S. to take the lead in negotiations. John Waggy has more.
Israelis won't have much time to digest the meaning of their new government. They're having visitors. U.S. flags are going up around Israel for the first presidential visit in 4 years, and business for flag makers in central Israel is booming. At Jerusalem's historic King David Hotel, the staff is working overtime because the president will arrive just before the Passover holiday.
Kitchen will be open 24 hours a day with special menus, and we're looking forward to it.
Although the welcome in Israel will be friendly, Americans are not optimistic about what the Obama administration can accomplish there. The latest ABC News Washington Post poll shows Americans sympathize with Israel over the Palestinians by a big margin, 55% to 9%, with the rest favoring neither or undecided. But an overwhelming majority, 70%, want the U.S. to leave a solution to the conflict to Israel and the Palestinians themselves. That's a 15-point jump from the last poll 11 years ago. No matter what happens on the diplomatic front, security will be tight, to say the least.
There is a large amount of cooperation which is also taking place between the Israeli police and American security. And this is the most important visit that has taken place since President Bush's visit in 2009.
In Palestinian-controlled Bethlehem, the security concerns multiply. U.S. officials inspected the Church of the Nativity this weekend, and in Ramallah, signs indicate that the president might get a less than friendly reception. It's the beginning of yet another battle for world public opinion before the president arrives on Wednesday. John Waggy, CBN News.
Ready making a name for himself as a people's pope.
The game show of biblical proportions is back with more action, more fun, more stars, Kirk Franklin, Mary, and more nuns.
The nuns just whooped you, man.
The American Bible Challenge Season 2 premieres Thursday at 9/8 Central, only on GSN. Visit GSNTV.com to find GSN in your area.
Jim is 38, mortgage, married, 3 great kids. He wants to protect his family with a $500,000 term life insurance policy. What do you think it'll cost him? $100 a month? 60? 40? Actually, none of the above. Jim can get a $500,000 policy from a highly rated insurer for under $19 a month. His secret? SelectQuote. SelectQuote is impartial. They'll comparison shop the pick of insurance companies like these to give you a choice of your best prices. SelectQuote has great savings on term life for women, too. Jim's wife, Deidre, can get a $500,000 policy for under $16 a month. SelectQuote has helped make term life insurance affordable for hundreds of thousands of people since 1985. How about you? Just call this number or go to SelectQuote.com. SelectQuote. We shop, you save.
The game show of biblical proportions is back with more action, more fun, more stars, Kirk Franklin, Mary, and more nuns.
The nuns just whooped you, man.
The American Bible Challenge Season 2 premieres Thursday at 9/8 Central, only on GSN. Visit GSNTV.com to find GSN in your area.
Pope Francis officially becomes the leader of the world's 1.2 billion Catholics on Tuesday. Vice President Joe Biden and dignitaries from across the globe are flying in for the ceremony.
But despite all the pomp, this new pope is displaying a touch for the common people. Charlene Israel explains.
In the 4 days since his election to lead the Catholic Church, Francis has already made his mark as the people's pope. A crowd of more than 150,000 roared as he made his first Sunday appearance from the window in St. Peter's Square. In the 15-minute address, he abandoned his written remarks and instead delivered off-the-cuff remarks about God's power to forgive.
Pope is very down to earth. He's a people person, and I think he's amazing. He's going to do wonderful for the church.
Earlier Sunday, Francis celebrated Mass at a tiny Vatican church and then broke precedent by wading into the crowd, shaking hands and kissing babies.
This is somebody who's with the people, and he's really speaking to them, and I think that message goes far.
Today, Francis prepares for the inaugural Mass of his papacy Tuesday. Leaders from across the world are coming to Vatican City, including President Cristina Kirchner of his native Argentina, who will meet with Francis. Still, questions are arising about the Pope's actions during a dark period in Argentina's history. There are some who claim the Pope did not do enough to protect Jesuit priests who were kidnapped. The Vatican has rejected the accusations as, quote, slander. Charlene Israel, CBN News.
Lawmakers in North Dakota have sent 2 new pro-life bills to the governor's desk. If signed, the measures would outlaw most abortions in the state. One bans abortions as early as 6 weeks into a pregnancy. The other prohibits women from having the procedure because their fetus has a genetic defect like Down syndrome. If made law, they would be the most restrictive abortion laws in the U.S. Pro-choice activists have promised a legal battle over the measures if they become law. In the meantime, Planned Parenthood is pushing to defeat an abortion bill that's being considered in North Carolina. Legislators introduced the measure last week. It requires doctors to have admitting privileges at a nearby hospital to provide abortions, and doctors would be forced to stay on site until a woman is ready to go home following an abortion. Proponents say it's about keeping women safe. Critics say it will limit access to abortions.
The woman needs to be protected. Her health is paramount. If you're going to do this procedure, which I don't advocate, if you're going to do it, you got to make sure it's safe.
This bill is about pure politics and has nothing to do with patient safety.
Observers say some version of the bill could pass the state Senate and House. It will then be up to the governor to sign.
Up next, how the church is bringing hope to hurting orphans in the Ukraine.
Show of biblical proportions is back with more action, more fun, more stars. Kirk Franklin, Mary, and more nuns.
The nuns just whooped you, man.
The American Bible Challenge Season 2 premieres Thursday at 9/8 Central, only on GSN. Visit GSNTV.com to find GSN in your area.
When you're driving along and your cell phone rings, do your eyes instantly go off the road? Then you need to get a grip. Hi, David Jones here with the new Grip Go, the most versatile hands-free mount that will instantly grip any phone for safe driving. Just attach the suction cup to your windshield or dash, and Grip Go grabs your phone ultra fast. Then it peels right off. And don't worry, there's no sticky residue left behind. The 360-degree pivoting mount allows you to always get the perfect viewing angle. It's even strong enough to grab and hold this expensive smartphone out the window. Yet it comes right off with ease. That's the advantage of Grip Go. You can get the amazing Grip Go with dashboard mount for only $14.95. We'll send you a second kit free. Just pay separate processing and handling. Get 2 complete Grip Go systems for just $14.95.
To order Grip Go for $14.95 plus processing and handling, call 1-800-709-5259 or order online at getgripgo.com.
The game show of biblical proportions is back with more action, more fun, more stars. Kirk Franklin, Mary, and more nuns.
The nuns just whooped you, man.
The American Bible Challenge Season 2 premieres Thursday at 9/8 Central, only on GSN. Visit GSNTV.com to find GSN in your area.
They are unknown and seemingly unwanted and unloved. Millions of children worldwide living without parents.
Now, churches, Christian organizations, and hundreds of families in one Eastern European nation are working to make a difference in the lives of the most vulnerable. George Thomas has tonight's Focus Report from Kiev, Ukraine.
To the human mind, it seems almost impossible. But spend time with the Isaiah family, and they'll soon convince you that with God, all things are possible.
The moment you see an orphan's eyes, I promise it will change your life.
10 years ago, Svetlana lived with a dark past. Yevgeny was a drug addict and HIV positive. Both had a radical encounter with Jesus Christ that changed their lives forever.
I began to search for God. I could see the path that I needed to go on.
The couple's dream, to see their nation of Ukraine without orphans.
If someone told me 10 years ago I would have these many children and would be married to an HIV-positive man, I would say that's humanly impossible. But God birthed in us something special.
Svetlana and Yevgeny became the first family in Ukraine to adopt a child with HIV. Not just one, 7 HIV-positive children.
If we want to see a Ukraine without orphans, Christians have to be a part of the solution.
And Christians are answering the call. Svetlana joined hundreds of pastors and Christian leaders from different parts of the globe in Kyiv recently for a summit on orphan care. Organizer Ruslan Maluta leads a grassroots movement committed to care for Ukraine's orphans.
God said that He is the father of the fatherless, which means that He wants every orphan to be in a family. How is God going to do it? It's through the church. Adoption and providing a home for an orphan is an integral part of the gospel.
And this is a crowd that is very serious about seeing a Ukraine without orphans. Sitting in the crowd, there are about 160 families that have either adopted a Ukrainian child or are today our foster parents. Gennady Munenko is one of them. He's a pastor, and along with his wife, they have 31 foster children.
Should all families take 31 children in like we did? No. But if this movement is to have a lasting impact, Christian leaders must set the example, and they are. The last few years, God has been moving on the hearts of pastors to lead the charge.
Paul Pennington is very encouraged by what he sees happening in Ukraine.
The potential here is huge because the church is engaged across denominational lines to be really a model to countries around the world how the church can make a difference for children.
Pennington is with Hope for Orphans, a Texas group helping Ukrainian churches with Bible-based orphan ministries. Pennington has 6 children, 5 of whom are adopted.
The only way to reach 140 million orphans around the world is through the church, because only the church is big enough, only the church has the power and the mandate to reach that many children in a sustained way.
Pastors in Russia, Belarus, Romania, and Moldova have started similar Nation Without Orphans movements.
What an honor to be in a
West Stafford, president of Compassion International, says he's moved by the pastors' dedication to the vision.
They do it with an understanding that God commits to bless orphans and those who do bless orphans. To see an audacious vision that these guys actually are qualified to talk about because they're doing it.
Steve Weber calls the movement a miracle. Weber leads CBN's Ukraine office, which has an active Orphans Promise outreach.
20 years ago, there was such a stigma against the orphan that Christians would fake pregnancy by carrying a pillow before they would take an orphan. Today, we're preaching, take the orphans home in our churches.
And the public is taking note. At a nationally televised event that drew Ukraine's rich and famous, Svetlana and Yevgeny received hero status and honored with the Pride of the Nation Award for their heart for orphans. There was hardly a dry eye in the crowd as people stood and applauded.
We didn't think about any awards. We simply were doing what was on our hearts to do.
We have only God to thank. He shows us how to love the unlovable. Without Him, we have no life. Without Him, my children have no hope. Without him, the orphans of Ukraine have no hope.
George Thomas, CBN News, Kyiv, Ukraine.
Up next, why a high school principal's solution to reaching a 100% graduation rate has some students upset.
The game show of biblical proportions is back with more action, more fun, more stars. Kirk Franklin, Mary, and more nuns.
The nuns just whooped you, man.
The American Bible Challenge Season 2 premieres Thursday at 9/8 Central, only on GSN. Visit GSNTV.com to find GSN in your area.
Jim is 38, mortgage, married, 3 great kids. He wants to protect his family with a $500,000 term life insurance policy. What do you think it'll cost him? $100 a month? 60? 40? Actually, none of the above. Jim can get a $500,000 policy from a highly rated insurer for under $19 a month. His secret? SelectQuote. SelectQuote is impartial. They'll comparison shop the pick of insurance companies like these to give you a choice of your best prices. SelectQuote has great savings on term life for women, too. Jim's wife, Deidre, can get a $500,000 policy for under $16 a month. SelectQuote has helped make term life insurance affordable for hundreds of thousands of people since 1985. How about you? Just call this number or go to SelectQuote.com. SelectQuote. We shop, you save.
The game show of biblical proportions is back with more action, more fun, more stars. Kirk Franklin, Mary, and more nuns.
The nuns just whooped you, man.
The American Bible Challenge Season 2 premieres Thursday at 9/8 Central, only on GSN. Visit GSNTV.com to find GSN in your area.
Spring is just a few days away, and with it comes the excitement of high school prom.
But seniors at one New York City high school may not get that chance thanks to some tough love.
The bad offer shouldn't ruin the whole prom for the seniors.
The principal at the Collegiate Institute for Math and Science is telling her students that prom is canceled, that is, unless their grades improve. The school already has a high graduation rate of 90%. But its principal says grades are slipping right now and that there will not be a dance without a 100% graduation rate.
People try different things to make sure that students stay focused on what's important. While a prom is nice, graduation is important.
I think it's a great thing. I think the kids need to have some accountability and they need to have higher standards. She's a great principal.
The chancellor believes that students have nothing to worry about. He says it's just a motivational tool, and it appears like it is motivating.
I would say so. I think it seems a little harsh to me. 90% graduation rate, that's great.
Yeah.
You know, let the kids have their prom, but
Yeah.
I'm not the principal.
Stay tuned.
That's all for this edition of Newswatch.
And remember, you can email us your comments and questions at newswatch@cbn.com. Have a great day.